All right. For those of you who are having trouble with our practice graphing assignment, I'm going to go over the first set with you so that you can get an idea of how the second set should be done. And then I'd like you to do the second set on your own. So we're starting off with this graph here. And the first question asks, what is this graph about? So in order to find out what the graph is about, the first thing we want to look at is the title right here. Number of breeding pair of chinstrap penguins versus year. That's going to tell us a lot about what the graph is about. This graph is about breeding chinstrap penguins and year. The next thing we want to look at is the title of the axes. So this is the y-axis, number of breeding pair of chinstrap penguins. And the x-axis here is labeled year. So it fits with the title, the number of breeding pairs of chinstrap penguins versus year. So what is this graph about? The number of breeding pair of chinstrap penguins versus year. The next question asks, for what years does this graph provide data? So in order to do that, I want to find out where the years are located. And that is actually the title of my x-axis. So the years. And I want to know what years does this graph provide data for. So I'm going to look at the beginning over on the left-hand side, and we start in the year 1976. And this graph provides data all the way through the year 2006. So in answer to the question, for what years does this graph provide data? The answer is, this graph provides data from 1976 to 2006. Okay? The next question was, how many breeding pair of chinstrap penguins were recorded in 1990? So the first thing you want to do here is identify what the question's asking. It wants to know how many breeding pair of chinstrap penguins were recorded in the year 1990. So in order to do that, we start on the x-axis and we look for the year 1990. And you can see it highlighted by that red box. From there, we're going to draw a line from 1990 straight up the graph until it intersects with the actual data points on the graph. Once we find that data point on the graph that's represented for the year 1990, just like that, we're going to walk it over to the y-axis and find out that it's corresponding with this number 200. Okay, so in 1990, there were 200 breeding pair of chinstrap penguins. In 1990, there were 200 pair of breeding chinstrap penguins. The next question asks, how many breeding pairs were recorded in 2001? So by now, you know we're going to first identify in the question, what data do we need to look for? We want to look for how many breeding pair were recorded in 2001. So we go to the x-axis, we find 2001. Next, you guessed it, we draw that arrow straight up from 2001. And then we walk the next arrow straight over. And you can do this with a ruler. You can do it with the edge of a piece of paper if you have a piece of paper. Or you can do it by drawing on it, just like I did, because everything's electronic. So now we have this area right here that doesn't have a number associated with it. So I know some people put 300, but 300 is down here. So how would we find the space in between 300 and 400? Well, we know that in between 300 and 400, there are 3 lines, so that this line right here is halfway in between. So we know that halfway in between 300 and 400 is 350, right? That still doesn't quite line up with this line in the middle. So now we can do the half again. Halfway in between 300 and 350 is 325. So how many breeding pair were recorded in 2001? The answer is 325. We had to take a few extra steps to get there, but we got there. So in 2001, there were 325 breeding pair of chinstrap penguins. Now this question, in general, what is happening to the population of the breeding pair of chinstrap penguins? And I started off the sentence in general. So we want to take a look at this data as a whole. So the first thing we do, we look at the start of the time. We're looking at it over time, which is 1976, and the end, which is 2006. And then I'm going to draw what's called a trend arrow. In general, what is the trend? And you can see the arrow that kind of goes through this data here is a straight arrow, and it's going up. Okay, indicating that the numbers of breeding pair of chinstrap penguins are increasing. We have more breeding penguins, about 325 in 2006, than we did in 1976. We had somewhere around 10 breeding pair in 1976 for this data set. So in general, the number of breeding pairs of chinstrap penguins is increasing. There are more chinstrap penguins now, or in 2006, than there were in 1976. So hopefully that helps you. You can get to work on the next one about the Adelie penguins, and you can always use this video for reference.